Thank you for joining us. This is the webinar that will be discussing outside scholarships, Florida state aid programs, and Florida prepaid. I have with me tonight Jessica Clower from the Office of Student Account Services, and my name is Joanne Brown, and I'm Director of the Undergraduate Financial Aid at the University of Miami. I'm going to ask everybody to please make sure you've muted yourselves, and if you have any questions throughout the program, please use the chat room feature, which should be on the right side of your screen. Questions can be answered immediately through the chat room feature. And if there's any popular questions at the end, we will stick around on the webinar and answer any questions you have later. Thanks again for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to talk about the Florida residency requirements for the Florida aid programs, and that will include your FRAG grant program, the Florida Bright Future Scholarship Program, Florida Student Assistant Grant, and the Benequisto Florida National Merit Scholarship Program. In addition, Jessica will talk about the Florida Prepaid Program, we'll talk about outside scholarship resources, and then provide you with our contact information. Okay. The Florida residency requirements here for Florida Aid in the state of Florida, it is based on the parent's residency if the student is dependent. The dependency is determined by the questions on the FAFSA form. Essentially, is the student 24 years of age or older? Are they married? Do they have any dependents that they're supporting? Are they an orphan or ward of the court or a veteran of the military, etc.? So the dependency from the FAFSA drives whether or not we're looking at the parents. Now, if the student is independent on the FAFSA, then it's going to be driven based on the student's residency. We look for the last 12 months of residency in the state of Florida, whether it's parents or student, and the purpose for locating into the state of Florida cannot be for school. So if you came here just to attend the University of Miami as a student and you came from another state, you would not be considered a Florida resident for the state aid purposes. When it's expected that a student is considered a Florida resident, we will ask for some documentation to be submitted to our office to prove the residency. If it's the parent's residency we're questioning, we're going to look for the parent's documentation. Otherwise, the student would submit their documentation. And this is just a sample of some of the documents that could be submitted. There are others. When we require such documentation, we would put to-do items on the student's cane link, and the checklist to-do item would actually drive you to a link that provides the information about all the various forms of documentation that could be submitted. The William Boyd Florida Resident Access Grant, which we call FRAG for short, it's for undergraduate students attending a private institution in the state of Florida. It requires that we certify the Florida residency. So if a student chooses not to do a FAFSA, we would then require a certificate of Florida residency application. One or the other is required to begin the process on the certification of the Florida residency. The Florida Resident Access Grant is available only during the fall and spring semesters. It does require full-time enrollment. And one note that I will add here, and you're going to hear me mention it a few times, is that state aid, including the FRAG, does not disperse until after the drop-add period each fall and spring. So right now we are at the beginning of our spring semester, and the drop-add period will actually end tomorrow, February 1st. It's the last day to drop a course without a W, so it's essentially the end of the drop-add period, and state aid will begin dispersing then on Thursday. In order to continue receiving the Florida Resident Access Grant, you need to maintain a 2.0 GPA, and that's a cumulative GPA here at the University of Miami, and you need to successfully complete 12 credits per semester. As a reminder, it's for full-time students only, so you have to have 12 credits or more in order to have eligibility to get the aid to begin with. Currently, the award amount is $1,500 per semester. That's based on 2016-17 data. We don't know what the award amount will be for next year yet. Typically, the state will inform us of what the FRAG amount is in the month of June or possibly July. So going forward, at this point, we have an estimation on award packages. If you've already been packaged as an incoming student, or when we do our continuing package, we will estimate the $1,500 per semester until we know differently. It is one that is based on funding from the state, so the group in Tallahassee will determine how much money they have to fund this grant program, and we have seen some volatility in the award amount from year to year. The Florida Bright Futures is for students who went to a Florida high school and they earned during their high school, based on achievement, they earned a certain level of Florida Bright Futures. There are two different levels. The Florida Bright Futures is also available during the fall and spring semesters only. It also requires full-time undergraduate enrollment, except for the final semester prior to graduation. If the final semester prior to graduation and completing the baccalaureate degree, the student only requires, say, 9 credits, the Florida Bright Futures can be prorated in the final semester once it's determined that they've applied for graduation. When we do the awarding of the Florida Bright Futures, we always have to project what the enrollment will be. We don't know necessarily in March or April how many credits that student's going to be taking come August or even the following January for spring. So what we do is we estimate the enrollment based on 15 credits per semester, because typically for your degree, you need to take 15 credits each semester to complete 30 credits a year and graduate with your 120 credits after 4 years. When we go to disperse the state aid, which again is after the drop add period, when we go to disperse the Florida Bright Futures, we will actually adjust it to the actual enrollment at that point in time, and we'll disperse it based on the enrollment. This is one of the programs that will fluctuate. So if a student drops classes even 8 weeks into the term, they withdraw from a class, we have to adjust the Florida Bright Futures Award and send some of the money back to the state. This is an important note for students, because if you think that your account is paid completely and you withdraw from a class later in the term, you may not get a tuition credit, but you may owe back some of the Florida Bright Futures because we had to return it to the state. So it's important to note that you must pay back Florida Bright Futures for any dropped classes. We do have a census date or fixed enrollment every fall and spring semester, and that begins, like I said, at the end of drop add. So this week, for example, drop add is February 1st. So we will lock in the number of credits at midnight on the night of the 1st, or 12:01, the morning of the 2nd, and the financial aid will be set according to those credits as of 12:01 on the 2nd. However, Florida Bright Futures is exempt from that. We do have to continue adjusting that based on the enrollment changes. Florida Bright Futures high school requirements for any folks that are joining us that have new students that are still in high school or graduated last year. The top tier Florida Academic Scholarship required in high school a 3.5 weighted GPA and a 1290 on the SAT or 29 on the ACT. The Florida Medallion Scholarship required a 3.0 weighted GPA, 1170 SAT or 26 ACT. Both of these programs also had a requirement for community service. Then depending on the level earned, the per credit hour rate, which is set by the state, Florida Academic Scholarship is $103 per credit. Florida Medallion is $77 per credit. The renewal requirements are a little different depending on the tier. The highest tier, Florida Academic Scholarship, requires a 3.0 cumulative GPA at the University of Miami, as well as the successful completion of 12 credits per semester. The Florida Medallion requires a 2.75 cumulative GPA with also the successful completion of 12 credits per semester. The Benequisto Scholarship Program is a fairly new state program. I think we're going into this fall the 3rd year for this program. It was formerly called the Florida Merit Incentive Scholarship. And this is for students who are National Merit Scholars as determined in high school when they took their PSAT tests. They're a National Merit Scholar, and they choose to stay in the state of Florida. So you can use this here at the University of Miami. It is for students that are pursuing their first bachelor's degree. It has a stipulation that once it's awarded and the student is determined eligible, they cannot have a W on their transcript, so they cannot withdraw from any courses, or they'll lose their eligibility in this program and there's no appeals process. It's available during the fall and spring semesters only, and as I said, we're just going into the 3rd year, so there's no retroactive eligibility for this. The program requires a 3.0 cumulative GPA to continue receiving it, successful completion of all courses attempted, again, no W's, and it is based on a cost of attendance. Now, the state determines the cost of attendance. It is not based on our University of Miami cost of attendance. So last year, it was around $23,000. It's based on the state average, state institution average cost of attendance. So it was around $23,000. And how to determine eligibility, we have to subtract the National Merit Award that you receive. We have to subtract any Bright Futures eligibility. And then the balance is the Benequisto Scholarship. Again, up to the cost of attendance at the institution, because that then would conflict with the federal requirements. We always have to make sure that a student's total aid package doesn't exceed the cost of attendance at UM. But to calculate the award, we begin with the cost of attendance as determined by the state, and it's based on the state schools. Disbursement, again, does not occur until after the drop add period. The Florida Student Assistant Grant is a need-based grant from the state of Florida. Here at the University of Miami, we do require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile. It's for undergraduate students only, and it requires, of course, demonstrated financial need. Students must be enrolled full-time, available during the fall and spring only, and it disperses after the drop add period. Now, one note about this, it is based on funding availability. So this is a program that you always want to complete your FAFSA, your CSS profile, and any required documentation early. For continuing students, that date is April 15th. You want to make sure you have everything in by April 15th. You've submitted your applications. You've submitted any tax forms that we've asked for. And the best way to ensure that you're complying with all of the requests is to monitor your Cane Link to-do list. I would check it at least once a week to make sure there's nothing outstanding. But this funding is limited, and it's on a first-come, first-served basis until the funding is exhausted. In order to continue receiving the Florida Student Assistant Grant, you have to maintain a 2.0 cumulative GPA and the successful completion of 12 credits per semester. The award amount is up to $1,305 per semester. That's based on the amounts that the maximum that the state said we can award this year. And as a reminder, apply early. Now we're going to move on to outside scholarships or other scholarships not related to state of Florida funding. Outside donor scholarships can come from many different sources, and here are just some ideas on where to research scholarship opportunities. Business and industry, parents, employers, civic organizations, places of worship, and public library. What I mean by the business and industry, for example, if you're a female engineer, you might want to Google scholarship opportunities for female engineers, and also the organizations as professional women engineers, the organizations that you could belong to. All of those different organizations usually will raise some scholarship funds and offer scholarship funds out there to develop new professionals into that line of work. So that's one opportunity or one area to look. Another, parents, employers, not necessarily something that you're going to hear widely broadcast at their place of employment. So I would have them check with their benefits office to see, even if it's a $250 scholarship, anything will help. Civic organizations, you could check within your local area, your women's clubs, your Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs. All of those organizations raise money and then they put that money back into the community by offering scholarships to the residents of that area. Places of worship, well, that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, the public library. That's the old-fashioned way of going to the library and saying, let me see what you have on outside scholarships for the area. There are a lot of online search engines that are available. The best ones that we know our students have had success with are fastweb.com, fastwebgold.com, and scholarships.com. Here's some tips for some scholarship searches, and probably the most important one is number one, don't rule yourself out. If you look at a scholarship opportunity and it lists 5 different criteria that you need to meet, and maybe you only meet 3 or 4, I would still recommend applying for it. Bank on the fact that nobody else met all 5 and they gave up. Apply for as many awards as possible. Don't leave any stone unturned. Pay close attention to deadlines. Look for scholarships from a variety of sources. Tell everybody that you're looking for scholarships so that your family and friends can be on the lookout as well. Make use of the free scholarship directories and search engines. Watch for the scams, and then remember to write a thank you note to the organization. And this, I think, is a pretty important point. The more times that your name can go across that organization's desk, the better. So I do encourage you to write a thank you so that next year when you go to apply for it to be renewed, your name's familiar to the organization. Be careful of the warning signs that it could be a scam. Anything that sounds too good to be true is probably too good to be true. If you see something that says the scholarship is guaranteed or your money back, well, that's implying that you should be paying for the scholarship, so I would avoid that. Anything that says that you can't get this information anywhere else, it's exclusive or just for you, that you've been selected, but yet you know you've done nothing to apply for that opportunity, it's probably a scam. Never give out credit card or bank account information. And the last one, if you've been selected by a national foundation to receive a scholarship or you're a finalist, again, if you've never entered that contest, you've never done an application for that scholarship, it's probably too good to be true. Now, how does an outside scholarship affect your aid package? First of all, it might, and it's very important to make this point clear that any time that you receive an outside scholarship opportunity or outside funding, you have to let the financial aid office know. This is a federal regulatory requirement. But the way that we treat it is we always, of course, try to benefit the student first. So any outside scholarships that come in, the first thing we do is try to use it to fill a gap that might exist between the institutional EFC from the CSS profile and the federal EFC, which comes from the FAFSA. If an overaward still exists, then we're going to try to reduce the self-help aid, including loans and work study. We look at the loans first, and then we would start chipping away and taking away some work study in order to make room for that outside scholarship. If you know you're not going to use your work study and you'd rather us reduce work study first and then loans, you can always provide that to us in writing, and we're happy to help you with that. Then if there's still an overaward after we have reduced all the self-help aid, which is need-based self-help aid in the aid package, then we're going to have to chip into the need-based grants that would be there. We have to make sure that the student is not overawarded by need-based calculation and that the total aid package does not exceed the cost of attendance. This is just kind of a really simplistic view, but this is what we do to calculate need. We start with the cost of attendance. We subtract the family contribution. We subtract any aid that we know about, and this is where that outside scholarship will be considered. And the bottom line is your financial need. We need to make sure that when applying this formula like this, we don't have a negative number on the bottom. And again, as a reminder, all students are required to report outside scholarships to the Office of Student Financial Assistance. If you fail to report an outside scholarship, you may be required to pay the school or the government all or part of your need-based financial aid package. The process to notify us: provide us with scholarship award notification via email to mydocuments@miami.edu as soon as it's available. Submit to us the student endorsed, if it's required, a student endorsed check to our office via mail or in person. We prefer in person. Now, it has to be student endorsed if it was made out to the student. If it's co-payable, made out to both the student and the university, the student would still need to endorse it. Please retain a copy of any check that you submit to our office. Please retain a copy of it and submit to us with it any foundation or organizational letter that comes with it. The documentation that accompanies a check oftentimes will tell us how it is to be applied. If we don't receive any documentation to go with it, we will assume that it's a fall-spring disbursement. We'll apply 50% of it to the fall and 50% to the spring. And that's where that documentation, if they tell us it should be all applied to the fall, for example, we will follow the guidelines that come in that documentation. So it's important to supply that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Clowers. She's going to talk about the Florida prepaid programs. Come in.
Hello, everyone. This is Jessica from the Office of Student Accounts, and I'm going to go over the Florida Prepaid program with you guys. So first, what is Florida Prepaid? Florida Prepaid is not aid. It is a savings plan that someone, like a 529 plan, would have paid into, your parents, grandparents, anyone providing you with the plan. And it's used to pay for educational expenses at Florida public universities, but we do have a program here that they will pay the University of Miami. How does it work at Rates are determined each academic year by Florida Prepaid to determine how much they will pay, depending on the contract that has been purchased. So each year they tell us at the beginning of the fall semester the rate that they would pay for each different kind of contract. And then we will then use those rates for the fall, spring, and summer of that academic year. Deferments are posted on the account for what we expect to receive from Florida Prepaid based on what you've requested and the rates that they've given us. There are several different types of plans that you can have: tuition only, tuition and fees, only 2 years worth plans, the 2+2 plans, which is 2 at a lower level university rate and an upper level university rate. There's a dorm plan, and so on. The most popular is the 4-year university rate tuition only plan. And currently, just for an example for you to know what they determine the rates to be, this year they determined that the rate is $116.67 per credit hour. Now, this is not based on what you register for as a student, but based on what you are requesting. And the most popular thing that people request is 15 credits per semester, because that will deplete the plan evenly of 120 credit hours. 15 for each fall, spring for 4 years is 120 credit hours. And right now, that student would receive a credit of $1,750.05 per semester. So we process the billing of Florida Prepaid as one big group after the drop add period ends. We will bill all students on current semester contracts at one time, and then once we set up the billing right away, Florida Prepaid will tell us if there are any issues, and we'll make adjustments right away even before receiving the payment, so that you will see that adjustment made on your account. And we will leave notes stating if there is an issue, so that if you do see a change, just let us know and we can tell you why. Refunds. So a lot of times the Florida Prepaid will create an excess on the account or be part of what creates an excess. But until we do the actual billing and receive payment, that is not actual funds on your account, so we will not refund until payment is received. Once payment is received, the deferments are removed from your account and a payment is posted, and refunds will begin being released the following day. The payments act on your account and will apply to any balance or charge on the account. Unlike certain financial aid or other things that you could get credits for on your account, it will apply to any balance that you have for anything on your account. Okay, how to set up the Florida Prepaid. This is really the most important thing, is these 2 forms have to be turned in. The first form is the transfer form from the Florida Prepaid, and you have to submit that back to them. And the second form is from You can find it on the Student Accounts website, and it has to be turned in back to at Student Accounts for us to bill. And very important, the 2 forms have to match. You see there's a restricted and an unrestricted option on both forms. You have to be set up in Florida Prepaid as unrestricted for us to bill as unrestricted here at and vice versa. And this is a little example so you can kind of see what it would look like on your account. When it says Florida Prepaid Plan Deferment, that means that's us setting up your account to bill, but it's not a payment. And we will put that credit on your account until we receive payment, and then we will zero it out, and the payment will post. So the most important thing is, and that most people don't do and why they are not set up for Florida Prepaid is that they don't turn in the authorization form to us. Just submitting the form to Florida Prepaid will not set you up for Florida Prepaid billing. You have to fill out the authorization form. You have to complete all of the questions on there. If you just choose unrestricted and don't choose an option underneath, then we don't know what to set you up to bill for. And that's it for Florida Prepaid. Here's all of our contact information for financial aid. You can come into the office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, except Wednesdays after 10:30. And by telephone, the number is there for you, 9 to 5 on Mondays and Fridays, Tuesdays to Thursdays, 9 to 6. And we have the email information below. If you need to talk about Florida Prepaid or anything else with the Student Accounts Office, you can come see us in person Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Call us by phone or email us. Oh, yes, please keep putting your questions into the chat. We'll be on there for 5 minutes, so you can keep submitting questions to us there. And if you have questions after that, you can always send us by email. Thank you.